right, so we have our turkey marinating in the refrigerator, and now we're going to move on to our second part of the mission statement, which is talking about some deer hunting tactics. We're going to analyze some of the essential things that I think that you should know about a deer, and maybe some tactics moving forward going throughout the season that could make you a little bit more successful out in the woods. Number one, there's 50 subspecies of whitetail, muleys, and black buck throughout North America. That's all the way from Canada to Mexico. And understanding the anatomy of a whitetail, or really any deer, is, I think, pretty important. Just like, as you see, I'm a big turkey hunter. I've devoted a lot of time in studying about the wild turkey and really hunting the wild turkey. And for me, learning is a constant thing. And if you're not educating yourself on how to hunt an animal that you are interested in, then I think you're sort of failing yourself a little bit. So understanding a deer and its habitat and its anatomy and how it acts, I think, is extremely important. So today, Cotton Eye Joe is going to help us out, and he's going to be our visual guide to walking you guys through what I think some important things are about a deer's anatomy. Okay, number one, obviously the antlers, right? Everybody knows about a buck's antlers. They shed them every year, okay, and then they start growing them, around spring, summer, and then they'll start rubbing all their velvet off in late summer. Right now, most of the bucks in our areas, they've already rubbed all their velvet off, and now they're becoming weapons for the rut. And that's exactly what antlers are for. So the next thing is something called a preorbital gland. And a preorbital gland sort of sits right about here on a deer, right inside of their eye. And a preorbital gland is just a scent gland that is used on rubs. So they'll rub it against the rub just to deposit their scent. And then over a licking branch, they'll rub their heads on it, and that's how they deposit their scent on the licking branch. And that's why you see them nose up smelling, and they're trying to figure out what other bucks are in the area, and they're basically just laying their scent down so other bucks know that he's there as well. So close to the preorbital gland, you have the forehead gland, and that's exactly what it sounds like. It's right on top of the forehead, and all the forehead gland is for is the buck deposits that scent from this gland on rubs and then limbs, overhanging scrapes as well. So they'll use both of those. They'll use both of those glands to deposit their scent. So the next thing is their necks. Their necks swell to 3 times its normal size during the rut. And just like a wild turkey, why they display their feathers and their fans, it's the same concept. So they get big to intimidate other competitor bucks, and just to look a little bit more muscular during breeding season. So the next thing about a deer, and especially a buck, is there's something called the interdigital gland on their hoof. And this is a unique scent that is only deposited by that one deer or that one buck. And tracker dogs, if you ever end up hitting a deer in the wrong spot and you have to go track it down, this is what most trackers teach their dogs to smell for, is that interdigital. That gland is really important, because whenever it's making a scrape, or it's traveling down a trail, or it's near a rub, those deer will smell that interdigital gland, and that is that unique smell that one of these kind of bucks will leave in order to let those other deer know, like, hey, I'm in the area. So onto the glands that most people usually know, is there's 2 other glands on the back end of the deer's leg. Of course, you got the tarsal gland, and then you have something called the metatarsal gland, which honestly no one really knows what a metatarsal gland is for. But the tarsal gland, everybody knows, because it's a real dark spot, and whenever a deer takes a leak or does whatever, especially in a scrape, he'll rub his 2 legs together, and that gland allows the urine to get deposited onto that scrape, and it's just a communication feature for a deer. And those tarsal glands, they are probably the most prominent and funky smelling gland that you will probably find on a deer. Especially during the rut, you'll come up on one of these dudes and they will smell like very musky smell, and that's usually that tarsal gland, but the rest of those glands just creating that musky smell that you'll encounter. And then the last one is the testicular gland, which essentially just tells all the bucks that it is go time during the rut. And those are all the real anatomy glands that you probably should know about, especially when you're watching or you encounter some scrapes. That's the primary reason and way that they communicate during the fall. And if you find a scrape that is used all year, it's the same thing. They'll use mainly urine, but they'll use that interdigital gland to scrape all year to communicate with other deer. So a little bit more about anatomy. Let's go over a deer's hearing. It is true that they can hear a little bit better than humans, but it's really not as much as you think it is. They hear a little bit better than we do. Now, in my team, a lot of us can't hear very well just because we've been in the Army forever, but deer, they hear just a little bit better than we do. I read a study that I think humans, they can hear up to 20,000 hertz, and then deer is like 30,000 or something. Background noise, it affects them too. Around where we hunt, there's a lot of aircraft, there's a lot of helicopters, a lot of background noise in some of the spots that we hunt. So you got to take that into consideration whenever you're calling, rattling, using grunts and doe bleats and whatever else. So really, they can't really hear a whole lot better than you can hear. And whatever you hear is what they hear as well. And they don't have like supersonic hearing or anything. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so do deer have superpower? I would say no. They have one major tool that they bring to the fight, and that is their noses. Their nose is probably their best weapon to defend against people like me and you, or predators, right? Like, that is probably the number one thing that they use that can keep them alive in the situations that are coming up pretty quick. Just consider this. Humans have 5 million receptors in our nose. Bloodhounds have 200 million. A white-tailed deer has almost 300 million olfactory receptors in their nose. So they can smell better than a bloodhound, which is really impressive. You just got to keep in mind, there is a multi-million-dollar scent odor, scent elimination stuff, in the outdoor industry. Honestly, you can try everything you want, but a whitetail's nose is going to fool anything out there on the market right now. For me, I will go through certain steps to try to mask my odor, but there is no way you're fooling a deer's nose downwind. There is just absolutely no way that you're going to fool it. Like, when you see a deer licking its nose, he's trying to figure out that one scent, and he's smelling 5-6 different scents at the same time. He could be smelling a coyote 300 yards away. He could be smelling you. He could be smelling some acorns. He could be smelling some water. He can smell 60 times better than you can. So just keep that in mind when you go to the woods, and don't fall for the hype of all of this scent cover stuff. Save yourself some money. And I'll tell you some ways that I do it, but that scent stuff is good for a little bit, but you're just know that you're not going to fool his nose if he is downwind of you. All right, so second to last thing that we'll talk about real quick is a deer's eyesight. Deer have, I think they're called high density retina rods in their eyes, and they basically have slits in their eyes, right, to help them see. They can see in UV, so don't wear blue out into the woods. Don't wear purple or anything like that. That's why most guys wear camo. they can see in that UV spectrum. So just keep that in mind. If you want to look that up on Google, figure out what the UV spectrum is, then by all means. Something else to consider is some camo companies, they'll put UV brighteners in their clothing to keep them from fading and whatever. There are companies out there that they make UV brightener treatment for your clothes. If you want to look into that, by all means. I mean, the best thing that you could possibly do is just break up your outline, you know, get some good camo, and whenever you're out there, just don't move. Don't make any quick movements, because deer focus in on movement to identify a threat. Just like wild turkey, they have great eyesight. Deer do too. But if you were to stand motionless, wearing some type of camo against a big tree, if they were 20 yards, they probably would not see you. They'd probably smell you first, but they wouldn't see you. All right, so that's sort of about the deer's eyesight. They can see well, but again, they key in on movement more than anything. So just keep that in mind whenever you're up in the stand or in a blind or, you know, whatever. Now, I haven't seen any videos from some of the other outdoor guys that I follow on much of this, so I'll just go over this real quick. A lot of hunters are call shy. Some guys aren't, some guys are. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I think it really depends on where you're at and the location of your stand compared to bedding areas, compared to travel routes, feeding areas, so on and so forth. For us, I think calling is few and far between, because for me anyway, I haven't had a whole lot of success with it, because I think they hear it a lot where we hunt, because we hunt, there's a lot of people out every day. There's going to be people out in the woods rattling, doe bleeding, you know, grunting, whatever else. So I think it gets overplayed in the deer woods that we hunt. Now, if you were out in some other piece of public land way out in the sticks, I think you'd probably be a little bit more successful than we are. But we're going to cover just a few of the normal stuff, just in the event that you are call shy and you want to give it a try. So for the first call that we'll cover, it's just a contact grunt. And a contact grunt is used by every kind of deer in a deer herd. Does will use it, bucks will use it. Just doesn't matter. And all it is just a, hey, I'm here, what's up type of call. That's all it is. It's just a half-second blow through your call. So the second call is a tending grunt, and a tending grunt is a buck dogging a doe. It's essentially just saying, who's the man? I'm the man. It's just real short burps and just paired with a longer burp. That's all it is. Something that you might see on a video or just out in the deer woods when you're hunting is a roar. And a roar is just a buck that is out of his mind with lust. And that's all it is. It's just a long, drawn out grunt, essentially. If you hear that, then I hope you have some estrus out, because that buck's coming. Okay, so the snort wheeze. Snort wheeze is a aggressive call used by other bucks to say, hey man, you want to do this or what? I'm about to fight you. And you can also do it with your mouth. And that's all it is. You're just blowing out. And it's just saying that I own this turf. You best move out of the way, because I'm pretty pissed off. Then the last one is obviously the doe bleat, or just a regular bleat, right? And a bleat is just sort of it's made by does, and most of the time it means like it's okay, you know, I'm over here. It's sort of just a relaxed sound. And all it is just a higher pitched sound made by a doe. And then of course you got the estrus bleat, and the estrus bleat is just a long drawn out sheep sound that I like to compare it to. And they have, you know, like Primos has the can, you just turn it over, which is pretty simple to use. And all you're doing, you're just doing that inflection and deflection with your hand. Open up the call, let it back down. Open up the call. And then lastly, the famous rattle. You know, I've heard guys rattle, and I've rattled too, just to, you know, just sort of cure the boredom a little bit. I haven't had any success with it, but if you're gonna rattle, rattle for longer than 10, 15 seconds. Rattle for a whole minute or longer, because you got to think, how long does two bucks fight? They fight for a while, right? And you want to make it as drawn out as you want. And you never know, like I said, the earshot of a buck passing by, or you know, off in a field or in a bedding area, it might make him stand up and be like, hey, what is going on in my area? I'm gonna go check it out. And that's what you're trying to do when you rattle. You want to try to pique the curiosity of a big buck in your zone to come over and check it out, and hopefully it does. But if you're gonna rattle, I don't know how well I'll be able to do it. So this is obviously the black rack. You know, you got to slam them together, and you're just moving them back and forth, and you're making it as loud as you can, because you're trying to create this fight that you're trying to get that buck to come to you. If you don't want to carry antlers, I have some antlers in my shed too that sometimes I'll take out with me. You know, you got a rattle bag too. And the best thing about a rattle bag is you can just run it along your leg, or you can slam it against the tree, and then you can use your other hand to just hit on some branches and whatever else. I've seen these work plenty of times, and they're nice and compact, so that's another option for you. But my recommendation is, if you're going to rattle, just rattle longer than 15-20 seconds. Thanks for watching this episode of The Mission Statement. We really appreciate you guys tuning into us and following us throughout our adventures. I really wish everybody the best deer season possible. I'll be rooting for you guys with my whole 3 fingers. Hopefully later down the road I'll fill the freezer. I'm going to try for a crossbow kill, or heck, maybe even a rifle kill this year based off my disability that I have. Got some really exciting stuff coming up. We got some more apparel coming up. We got a hoodie and a new hat coming down the line. So stay tuned for that. I look forward to seeing everybody's pictures up on the internet, on Instagram and on Facebook. So good luck to you. Make it a mission.